Hi, this is Joe again with another review. I'm going to say in this video we're going to be discussing the 1958 horror film, The Haunted Strangler. No relation to the Boston Strangler. The movie stars Boris Karloff, and for you James Bond fans out there, Anthony Dawson. And those of you who are the more recent Bond film fans, Anthony Dawson played Professor Dent in the original James Bond film Dr. No, and he was he was actually the first actor to play Bullfield in Rush for Love and Thunderball. He was the one who was constantly stroking the cat. It was called Number One, Inspector. You never saw his face because actually people would realize, hey, that's Professor Dent from Dr. No. But so the confusion, you never actually saw his face, just his body, and his face was always in the shadows. So he's in this movie with Boris Karloff. Now, The Haunted Strangler starts off with this guy who was hung because it was in Victorian England, like 1860, thereabouts, and there was this guy who was supposedly strangling women, in London, particularly girls who were showgirls in a nightclub. And this guy was accused of it, and he claimed, it was never me, and didn't do it, didn't kill anybody, and yada yada yada. And he was taken to the gallows to be hung. And because he was already found guilty, he was executed to be hung, and which eventually he was. And the whole time he was yelling, "I didn't do it, didn't do it, didn't do it." Well, some 20 years later, Boris Karloff, who is in this day and age, in 2022, he'll be called like a true crime nut. Is into true crime, is investigating to make sure that the person who was accused of committing the murders actually did do it. So people keep telling him, "Oh, why you bother knocking yourself out for? We all know the guy did it and stuff." And so Boris Karloff says, "Oh no, I like checking things out. I like to check on my own, or I convince myself that the person who was convinced of doing it actually did do it." So he does this stuff kind of like a hobby. He's like obsessed with true crime, and is obsessed with this particular case. So while he's checking it out, he says, "Oh, maybe you can find the actual murder weapon." He tells his assistant and his cop friend, who was played by Anthony Dawson, he says, "Oh, you guys never found the murder weapon. I'm going to find the murder weapon and prove to you this guy never did it." Well, wherever he looked, he just couldn't find Boris Karloff. Anyway, wherever he looked, Boris Karloff couldn't find it. And then he figures out, maybe it's in maybe buried with him with his. He figured out that he was buried with a knife, which he did actually see, in the beginning of the film. So what he does is he paid off a guy like $20 or whatever, or £20, because it's in London. Goes breaks into the cemetery and digs up the grave, and he actually does find the knife, which and only in a movie like this, where the knife was possessed by the killer, and yes, it was actually the killer that was buried. That the guy was, even though he denied it from the last moment before he was hung, he actually did do it, and his spirit was possessed. Possessed this knife, and whoever holds this knife becomes the next strangler, which eventually does happen. And I thought it was really, really creepy. And Boris Karloff, only the way Boris could do it, he really sold this thing, and he contorted his face in a certain way to look differently, but it was really Karloff the whole time. And you thought maybe it was makeup. Well, the budget for this film was really not that much. They didn't have a big budget for this film, so what Karloff did was kind of like what he did when he played the Frankenstein monster some 30, almost 30 years before. He took his dentures out, so he had the hollow out looking, and he could manipulate his face and his mouth and his lips and stuff to make him look differently, and it worked. I mean, it worked in Frankenstein, and even worked more in this movie because it looked creepier in this movie than they did playing the Frankenstein monster. And he went out, killing again. And at first, you thought it was the same, the same person or a different person, but it found out the Boris Karloff actually was the person the whole time, which was a crazy little plot twist. Because Boris Karloff had himself convinced that he was the killer the whole time. He had like repressed memories and stuff, kind of like almost like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type situation, and that's what happened in this film. Kind of like a variation of the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. And of course, Karloff does get that. Spoiler, he does get killed at the end of this movie, and it's found out that it was the knife that was doing it, the possessed knife thing, and they figured out what was going on, but it was like too little, too late by the end of this film. I thought it was and I know I'm going like a quick film, and I like to do a quick review once in a while. This film was kind of like held my interest, even though it was kind of silly, like a possessed knife thing. But like I said, it was all Karloff doing this thing, and it's also nice to see a guy who was a henchman in the first James Bond, even though the first James Bond, Dr. No, came out like 4 years later. After this film, it was kind of neat to see Anthony Dawson in another role besides playing Professor Dent and getting killed by James Bond in Dr. No. But it was a pretty good movie. I mean, how many into it? Even though the possessed knife thing was, like I already mentioned already, it was kind of silly. But like I said, Karloff made it work. I mean, you have to have a horror icon like Boris Karloff to make this plot work, which it did work. So that's my review of the movie, The Haunted Strangler. Please click on the video, please rate it, please subscribe to my channel, please forward this video on your Facebook pages. You can check all my reviews now on my YouTube channel at rowdyc.com, it's all WDY, and that's c.com, it's the homepage of the reviewer, Chris Lee Moore, and please check out all of his videos on his website. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.